All right. I'm just going to set this up here to let you guys think about it for a few minutes while we get started. So the topic is Thanksgiving. I double-checked that last night because I saw that on the schedule myself. But I wanted to be sure. And with this old nasty shoe behind us, does anybody here, by raising their hands, are you thankful for the shoes you're wearing? Why? Okay. What else? Okay, service for the purpose. What else? Some kids don't have it. What else? Okay. Well, I may come back to that in a second, but what kind of shoe do you guys think this is? Well, I mean, like, not brand, but the type of shoe you're hiking. This is my hiking boot from last year. It served me for about 3 years. And then about this time last year, my wife and I took a trip to the Smoky Mountains. I'm sure most of you guys maybe have been down there or have heard about it or know folks who have been down there. When we made it past Gatlinburg, we actually got into the forest, and we were hiking the first day, and it was raining. And this particular little boot had a fun little problem. You probably can't see it unless you're real close, but there's a nice little hole there in the bottom of the boot that I didn't know about when we started hiking. And it was an interesting experience because, I planned for it. I'd brought 3 pairs of socks for the trip. But it didn't matter because every puddle was a new experience of water just rushing into that shoe. And it basically completely failed me. So every day that week was wet feet. There was no more dry socks after 3 days. I swapped them out, but by an hour into the hike in the morning, it was wet again. And it really made me come to appreciate the shoe. So the folks of you who said about what it does for your feet, where it provides safety, we don't often think about that. How many of you live more than 50 miles from here? Good portion, most of you. So this trip, we walked, I don't remember the exact mileage, but it was at least 30. We've done some 50-mile trips before where we've walked. And in a bad pair of shoes, you can feel that experience when you've got some distance to travel. So with that in mind, I have a few things for you to consider with Thanksgiving, especially as we're going to try to add that to our prayer life, how to get our mind around it so that we're ready to offer that prayer to God. So the first point is that Thanksgiving is about recognition. How many days do you go by and you don't even think about the pair of shoes you're wearing? Every day. Usually you throw them on, you hopefully get them tied, you get out the door, and then you go on about your day and you don't think about them again. Unless it's a bad pair of shoes. Unless it wasn't preparing you appropriately for what you were doing. So recognition is kind of that first step in Thanksgiving. It's the first thing that allows us to actually understand the blessing that we have. Few verses to consider. Philippians 4:13. Can somebody quote that? Go for it. It's a simple verse, but it's a great recognition of the power of God and how through Him we can do things. It's that recognition of where we are in relation to God. And Psalm 103, which is a song that, as we say this verse, you may recognize or remember, but 103, 1 and 2, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all His benefits. If you go back at some point, if you want to read a great passage just on our love for God, Psalm 103 is a great one because he spends the entirety of it just going through the various things that he's experienced that God has done for him. So, why is it hard to recognize our blessings? All right. So in the moment, we're thinking about something else. In the moment, we. Okay. Absolutely. And taking it for granted. The second point is gratitude, which, if we're going to start with recognition of what we have, what we've been given by God, we're going to move into gratitude. Hebrews 12:28 says, "Therefore, since we receive a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us show gratitude, by which we may offer to God an acceptable service with reverence and awe." Let that verse sink in a little bit. Do you actually feel like your faith is strong enough that you believe that? A lot of you are young. Some of you may not even be Christians yet. Some of you may have been Christians for a short while. Do you believe down in your bones that we have a kingdom which cannot be shaken? She's shaking her head, yes. I appreciate that. But it is a challenge for us. Is that something that we feel every day 100%? Some days we're better, some days we're worse. Some days we have bad days where we just don't feel close enough to God. But if we put our eyes on His kingdom, we show gratitude, we offer to God an acceptable service with reverence and awe. If we're in awe of God, we've taken it past that recognition point, and now we're truly in a period of gratitude. Thirdly, thanksgiving is about acknowledgement. Why is it important to acknowledge what we're thankful for? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Who do you guys think the acknowledgement is for the most? Is it for God or is it for us?
It's more for us than for God, because God already knows what we are thankful for. When we recognize what we're thankful for, we become more thankful.
Absolutely. So that's an important concept for us to realize. When we're telling God what we're thankful for in prayer, it's helping ourselves get better as much as it's acknowledging God and being thankful to Him. I love many of these verses that I pulled out because they're all songs that we sing. There are many songs that we sing for camp songs at Rolling Hills and other places. Psalm 118:24, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Just a simple acknowledgement that this day is the Lord's, so I'm going to do what I can to try to better myself and do things for Him. And then even in verse 28 and 29 in the same passage, you are my God and I give thanks to you. You are my God, I extol you. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good, for His loving kindness is everlasting. It's important to acknowledge God, I think, as well, because there are going to be times when we're down. There are going to be times when we're discouraged, where we may be tempted to question God. We may be tempted to not be prepared, and we may attempt to turn away from Him. And that's another reason that it's important to recognize what God has done for us, so that in the sad times we can still turn back and say, these are the things that God has done for me. These are the things that God has done for my friends. These are the things that God has done for my family. So I will continue to do things for Him. Thanksgiving is also about joy. There's an excitement oftentimes that maybe we don't always feel with God, but we feel when we're given a gift at a birthday or Christmas, or perhaps even the excitement we feel when we get to see our families at this time of year. The special joy that kind of extends past the simple-mindedness or the basic desire we have to get things in this life. So we take that from kind of this simple human desire to collect things and make it to the things we truly treasure. And I want you to think about this treasure concept while we continue here. Especially, just kind of keep your eye on that old boot. The treasures of God are not necessarily the treasures that this world would suggest. They're not the things that people tell us are the right things. Another verse and another song that we're probably familiar with. Psalm 100 says, "Shout joyfully to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful singing. Know that the Lord himself is God. It is he who made us and not ourselves. We are the people and the sheep of his pasture." So we move from recognition to gratitude to acknowledgement to joy. And with that, I want you guys to think about, this treasure concept. What do you guys have joy about? Go ahead.
Being alive.
Being alive.
And that's, you start to think about the things we pray for. How many times do we pray for, God, thank you that I drew breath this morning, that I have another opportunity to serve you.
Absolutely.
You guys should absolutely cherish these kind of things, because I'm not 18, but I'm a little further from that than I'm a little further from that than I want to be, but things have changed drastically from when I was in the youth group. I don't even want to calculate when that was, but there were less opportunities, I would say. There were some different opportunities, but the fact that you guys have the summer youth series, you have things like the Commit Youth Rally, it's a great opportunity for you guys to take advantage of things that perhaps we didn't have. Yeah.
Being able to see my papaw over the weekend.
All right.
Family, so important.
All right.
And, like when you start talking about prayer, things like a dog, it's like I've heard people tease people for praying about that. But you know what? There are lessons I learned from our black lab. There are lessons about loyalty that animals teach us that I don't think we appreciate enough. And there are lessons about unconditional love when we come home and find our dog's gotten in the trash and we punish her, and then moments later she's coming to us just asking for a little bit of love after some discipline. There's a lesson to be learned there in that. So all wonderful things. What else do you guys feel joyful about?
I feel joyful about being able to go to a Christian college and every day being able to worship Him at school while doing that with other people that believe the same thing.
Sure.
Go ahead.
The little things. Oh, little kids.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's an interesting thing that has changed in my lifetime too. I've gone from a single Bible that I was given when I was a kid to so many that I don't even know which one to grab when I run out the door. And when you really start to think about these steps, the more we have, the more things start to fall out of recognition. If the Bible is easy to get your hands on, sometimes we neglect it a little bit more because it's not something that we cherish as much because we aren't as concerned about losing it. So we have to kind of maintain that. Did I see a hand in the back? Yes.
The freedoms we have in this country.
Absolutely.
I don't think we understand what it would be like if this group was in fear of somebody busting in and telling us, you're all going to jail for coming together to worship God. It's a great thing we have. And we also have many other great freedoms that others don't. And I think understanding what we have, great things.
You better write that one down.
I really like my brother. I apologize. Actually, the verse in Psalm 100 actually has more. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him. Bless his name. For the Lord is good. His loving kindness is everlasting, and his faithfulness to all generations. One other thing that we can absolutely have joy about, that people ask us, why on Sunday morning do we put so much attention on taking communion? Why do we stress so much of that point? But an understanding of what Christ did for us, an understanding of what salvation can mean for us, an understanding of just how much God did for us so that we can have hope. I've seen so many people that have decided for themselves that everything I've done in this life is so terrible that I am beyond God's help. And they've definitely lost that joy. They've lost that understanding of what God has done for them, so they're no longer able to turn towards him. So this joy is just as important. It's something that we have to be excited about what we've been given. And I appreciate the answers that you guys have given, because we have to appreciate the spiritual things we've been given so much more than the physical. The last point I have for you is that Thanksgiving is about purpose. Purpose is definitely a key to prayer when we're going into it. I've seen different people tackle prayers in different ways. I prefer to be honest, to kind of go at it without a lot of preparation. I kind of want whatever's on my mind to come out. But there are people that feel they have to write it down, and they spend a considerable amount of time thinking about what they want to say, and they devote a lot of effort to it. And if that's what you need to do to really have a powerful prayer for yourself, and I don't mean for others to hear, but something where you really get everything off your chest that you want God to hear, whatever way works best for you. But purpose in our prayer is so important, especially for you kids and for the environments you guys are in when you go back to school. Consider this verse, Colossians 2, verse 8. See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ. It's pretty well understood that in a classroom setting, especially at a college level, that people are going to try to pull you guys in different directions. People are going to try to pull you away from Christ. They're going to call it silly, uneducated, ignorant, things like that, in an attempt to discourage you from your belief. And purpose is what will help us take the acknowledgement of what Christ did for us and make it our own. It'll make it so that we're empowered by that in our prayer. Another one like it, which this is honestly one of my favorite verses, is 2 Timothy 2. And this is one that you guys haven't had to worry about as much yet, but I think concerns adults more than anything. This is 2 Timothy 2, verse 3. Suffer hardship with me as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No soldier in active service entangles himself in the affairs of everyday life, so that he may please the one who enlisted him as a soldier. We start to dissolve our priorities as more things come into focus. As more opportunities exist, we start to pull ourselves in multiple directions. So without that purpose, without that pointed effort to push us towards Christ, we start going in other directions. And then we start saying things like, I'm too busy. We start saying that I just can't make it tonight. I've got other things going on. And how sad is it? And I don't mean to say anything about people's schedules or what they've planned out or what people do in their lives, but so much of that we do is self-inflicted. We set our schedules up and we overload ourselves and we extend ourselves too far, and then when people ask us for something simple, we may take the opportunity to complain about it. So purpose, we can set our life up And for those of you that are seniors, which how many of you are seniors? A young group. Got a few seniors though. And juniors, I guess this is important for as well. As you're planning what you want to do with your life, we're almost encouraged, go get the better job so you can get the bigger paycheck, so that you can get the nicer house, and you can get the boat, and you can get the SUV, and you can get this and that and that and that and that. Make your purpose on Christ, not on things. And that will always be the trick to Thanksgiving, is make your purpose about Christ and not about things. And then lastly, this is Colossians 3:15. With purpose, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Be peaceful people. Be thankful for those around us. And be thankful for the situation we are in, and be glad in that. There's so many things that I think this verse leads us to. Contentment, which is something, to be honest, that you guys may not even realize is a problem yet. As people get into the rat race and you see people that overextend themselves, trying to make themselves happy, getting more and more things, as you see people who turn away from God because they've decided they found something better, as you see people who are clearly not peaceful, they've clearly lost that purpose in their life. So, the things we need to consider: recognition, gratitude, acknowledgement, joy, and purpose. And I think we need to appreciate things that are real. And by that I mean, if you consider back to this boot, I was telling some folks, my wife and I are going hiking. Actually, after we leave here, we're going to head off for our yearly trip that we do. I'm not going to be wearing this boot, but I'm going to be wearing a different one. And you can bet that I will appreciate so much more that it takes care of keeping my feet dry. I've had trips where I had a poor set of shoes years ago that gave me terrible blisters. I have that appreciation for it. And when you can do the same thing, realistic appreciation for what God has done for us, then you can really attach yourselves to that, and you can really make it about Him. So, the next time you go to pray, which is hopefully not too far from now, we certainly talked about adoration this morning. Haven't actually looked at the full schedule to see the other things that we've talked about, but make sure that you're spending a good deal of time just being grateful to God for what He's done. Because one mistake we can definitely make is to go too soon to, this is what I want, this is what I need. And it just becomes a request line, and not so much something where you're truly offering to God such a great thing. Well, thank you guys for your comments. Hopefully that makes you think a little bit. And always think about especially the people around you that make it up your Christian body, because those are the ones that we truly, truly should be so thankful for. You got a question, comment? No? All right. Thank you.